Ready or not, summer is coming, and Wayfair's Memorial Day clearance is on now. Right now through May 25th, get up to 70% off everything home at Wayfair. Plus, score amazing doorbuster deals all sale long and surprise flash deals on Memorial Day. We're talking thousands of products at every style and budget. Now is the time to save big on must-haves for your patio, backyard, and beyond. These savings won't last, so don't wait. Shop Wayfair's Memorial Day clearance now through May 25th.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
911, what's the nature of your emergency?
Welcome back to the Tactical Living Podcast. I'm your host, Ashley Walton, joined by Sergeant Walton. Glenn, how are you?
I'm good.
You know, a lot of the times we hear people talking about the stigma around mental health and being a first responder in general, but I don't ever hear anybody talking about the institutional stigma and then the self-stigma that's associated with it.
I think with that institutional stigma that it's like ingrained from the very beginning, like starting from the academy, going into just the normal line of policing, it's like just keep moving on from it and keep pushing forward from this trauma that you see on a regular basis. Yeah, and so to break it down, institutional stigma basically exists within departments and organizations, and we hear and see this one all the time, where seeking help is associated with basically being unfit for duty or losing the badge, or maybe being seen as being weak by your other peers and your other partners. And self-stigma actually develops internally when somebody absorbs all of those cultural messages and they begin to believe that their struggles are making them less capable or less worthy. And especially in this new day and age with the type of policing that we're having to deal with, I mean, going back to 2020 through now, there's been, our job has been politicized so much in trying to, support other people's agendas and law enforcement in general is becoming victim to those political agendas because they're not looking at the human nature aspect of it. They're looking at how can I move myself forward and how can I get those most subscribers and likes. Something that I've seen is that there's a lot of people who, just kind of breaking down what this actually looks like, where you have available resources and a lot of the times people will just completely dismiss it or act like they don't need it because they have those fears of the stigmas that are associated. Yeah, I think because you see that historically you see so many officers, see what's being talked about from others of, oh, well, I saw this person, they were affected this way when they brought forward these thoughts or concerns, or most of the time though, like really breaking it down, like it's all second, third hand. You're not really having that firsthand experience, and it's kind of few and far between when you really see that firsthand experience. Something else that I see is that there are people who will basically hide their symptoms, whether they're struggling with PTSD or depression or anxiety, and they hide it from not only people at work, but from people at home too. Yeah, and inevitably it starts affecting your day-to-day operations, meaning of just what you're going through in your normal life. You're not sleeping as well. You're having these thoughts or conclusions coming through on a regular basis that you're just kind of pushing down because it's like going through your day-to-day. You're so used to pushing that down and compartmentalizing those thoughts and feelings and emotions, you're not able to fully get those addressed. About 6 years ago, I was working with a client on what I think was one of the worst officer-involved shootings that I can remember somebody sharing with me. And it was so traumatic. And the circumstances that this individual was kind of forced to be in, it left him feeling like he wasn't cut out for the job after. And I think this is one of those stories that we tell ourselves, and also just a way that
this stigma kind of manifests for a lot of people.
Yeah, and I think that starts at the very onset of those types of scenarios, those situations. It's, departments say, oh, well, we provided counselors to those people from the very beginning on it, but it's you have this imagery or this you have this stigma associated to yourself. Well, if I talk to this person, if I'm in there more than 5-10 minutes, my partners are going to be judging me based off of my response or being in that room for so long with whoever it may be.
I see a lot of ways that the stigma is still showing up in the first responder culture. And don't get me wrong, I think that we've gotten a lot better about this. But I still see that for some, help seeking is treated like it's a sign of weakness. And the culture just tells you to just push through. And most people decide to just comply with that.
Yeah, and I think that's where we're failing ourselves, especially as, being partners, being there to support one another. And because we come from a judgment kind of mindset with it, is like, well, why are they going through this when I've been through worse and I'm not dealing with that the same way? And so we start putting ourselves in their shoes and we start placing our judgment on them, and we don't need to even make that story about us whatsoever.
Something else that's crazy that I see is that for a lot of officers in particular, that fear of career consequences is a lot more severe than the symptoms themselves. Yeah,
and that fear that you just spoke of is, I think that's where we start manifesting that within ourselves of these expected outcomes. And I say this on a regular basis, like we're crying over milk that's already spilled, and you can't recover what's already out there, but you can recover your response to that.
In our personal life as well, something that I've been noticing is that a lot of the times mental health conversations stop at awareness and they never actually reach the action. And there's a lot of components to that. But whether it's fear of judgment or not having that support system, ultimately, a lot of the times people don't want to put in the work that's necessary in order to make things feel better.
Because putting in that work, I think it takes work, and we just want to say it's easier just to push it to the side and say, okay, we're just going to move on. Just like how in that compartmentalizing mindset, if we're able to just shove it to the side and, well, we can deal with that later. Or if I do that, I'm not going to have to effectively address any of those issues.
I'm thinking about one individual who's really pushed back against this stigma in not only his career life, but also his personal life. And I think one of the biggest things here is to just separate seeking help from being weak.
And that's the biggest statement in saying we have this mindset of if we seek that help, we are weak, and we need to keep changing that dynamic. I think with the times and things have improved so much over the years of the mental health and the stability for our own lives, being able to get that help, it's making it okay for ourselves to seek that.
The truth is that it takes a lot more strength and courage to ask for that help than it does to stay silent.
Yeah, being able to say, hey, something's not right here, and be able to speak with someone to explain to them that situation. You might not have all the tools on your tool belt to be able to address that on your own, and being able to go and speak with someone that has those tools available to give those tools to you, because you're not only going to get that help for yourself, but you may be able to help someone else in the future.
Something important to understand too is that the fear of consequences with your career, a lot of the times will keep people from the resources that are actually protected. So know your rights around the confidential mental health resources that are available by just simply asking.
Yeah, when you start having a clear picture on what's available and the confidentiality associated to it, it kind of opens up a whole new world. There's certain aspects that you may not completely know, but doing that research, I mean, you could literally go online and start researching that stuff for yourself to have that clear picture of what's protected and what's not.
You know, something I love about you as a leader in your space, Clint, is that you do a great job at normalizing this type of thing through repetition before any kind of resources are actually needed, because you talk about mental health before there's actually a crisis. Yeah,
because if we lay that foundation and you make it as this is our normal, this is what we're going to be talking about, like, and you can do that very simply from, debriefing any and all situations and recognizing not only in yourself but in others is their physiological response and emotional response to any given situation, because you never know how a specific situation is going to affect one another, and being able to have that on the early onset, and when that big incident comes up, it's just a normal thing. Yeah.
Something else that I think is really cool is when you're the person who goes first. And when I see leaders who do something like this, then they basically create this respected peer model, and it helps other people and the culture around them.
And I've been in part of situations where it's like a round table session. It's that debriefing, and it's being able to bring forward your emotions, your feelings with it. And I'm not saying you have to sit there and just cry and let everything out. It's just being able to articulate what happened to you.
I hope you've gotten some value out of today's episode. If you have, do us a favor, drop a review, subscribe down below. And as always, know that I'm sending you a long, tight hug from my home to yours.